Hey guys, how you doing? So I've been making some post updates about making some new videos, and so we're gonna start off and start doing that more regularly. I'm super psyched about that, and a really good place to start for both kind of my story and some of those questions that I got coming in from that post I made a few days ago is how did I know I was trans and when did I know I was trans? And I think this is a really good place to start, not only answering questions but also kind of digging deeper into my story. Um, and I do think there's two parts to this question. One is like, when did I know this feeling inside me? How did this feeling kind of like grow? But also, when did I know this term transgender, and when did I actually connect that with how I'm feeling? And that's very different from when I actually felt and knew those feelings of being transgender. And those feelings of like knowing I was a little bit different started from literally as long as I can remember. When you think of yourself when you're a kid, like, and you picture yourself when you're older, like being a race car driver, like whatever you picture yourself doing, like I always pictured myself as a man doing that. I pictured myself as a businessman. I pictured myself as the cool man on the motorcycle. I pictured myself being the fireman. Like, it never, it was, as much as those things can all be female jobs, it was never that I pictured it as that. It was always a very clear image in my head that I was going to grow up and be a man. And so that was like a really clear thing to me, like my whole life, that I pictured these things and I wanted to be a man. And when I thought about growing up, I thought about being and growing into a man. So that was like the very first thing. And then what is also really common with transgender kids is that around the age of 3, you'll either ask whether you're F to M, so male to female, or female to male. You'll ask whether your penis is going to fall off or when your penis don't grow. And that was a question that was also apparent with me. At the age of 3, I asked my mom when my penis was going to grow. And that's a really interesting question for a 3-year-old, where gender roles really don't matter in a sense really at all. So it's really kind of curious how someone knows to ask that at such a young age unless there's a much deeper reason for it. So this kind of triggered something in my mom to be like, okay, so there's something a little bit different. And she was always super supportive, always let me be me. And for a while, it just kind of like was like, all right, Casey's don't do them, and for a really long time, it was still Casey don't do her. And so it was just I got to dress how I wanted. When I was younger, and it really didn't matter. Like, I got to take my top off all the time when I was swimming. Like, it was just very much me being me, and my mom was great at allowing that. But as I got older, it was something where it was like, okay, I'm not just a tomboy. It's a little bit more serious than that as well. And so my mom started like looking a little bit more for gender like specific therapy. I've been in therapy like pretty much as long as like also my whole life. My mom is just a person that believes in talking and processing what's going on in your life to kind of like be able to come through on the other side on a better foot. And that's something that like we've always just kind of been in, is like my dad passed away when I was very young, so like kind of those emotions, she always wanted us to have an outlet for processing those. And so it also just really helped that I was in therapy a lot throughout this whole process. But it wasn't necessarily for gender. And when we did try to find therapy more specifically just for gender, what we found was this really interesting kind of switch where, because of that really common question at the age of 3, there's a lot of support groups for about 3 to 4-year-olds. There's a lot of support groups for like 18 to 24-year-olds, but everything in between, there's not a lot of great support groups for it. And that's a lot of in between time. Like a fucking lot of in between time. So there was this process of like really struggling to find a group that I could kind of explore this feeling and know what it meant. And so we ended up going to a therapist at Cambridge that was like that studied gender. But what we didn't know, and what he had actually broken a lot of ethical codes for, was that he didn't tell us it was conversion therapy. So I unknowingly got put into conversion therapy and stayed in it for quite a few months before like my mom's like therapist that she was going to just for her was like, yeah, this isn't right. Like, pull Casey out of this. Like, really start to question what he's doing because he's not telling you, and this isn't okay. And what we were able to break down is that it was actually conversion therapy, and which is really interesting because I remember going there. Don't remember what exactly we said, but I remember the feeling it left in me. I remember feeling like I was wrong for feeling how I felt, like I was not supposed to feel this way, that there was a way to fix this, and that if I tried hard enough, I wouldn't feel this way anymore. And so it did this thing for me. So even though I knew I was trans, and I knew I wanted to be, or I didn't know I was trans, but I knew I wanted to be a man, and I knew I wanted to grow up, and I knew that wearing dresses weren't my thing, and that I hated it. I'd still always force myself to, like, probably about once a year try to, be a girl. And so I'd buy all the new clothes and I'd wear it, and then I'd go to leave my house and I'd literally want to throw up because it was such a physical reaction. So this is not what my body wants. This is not what I want. I hate this. I hate every second of it. Such a physical reaction, and this like not being able to do what I thought I was supposed to be able to do is just creates so much like tension in your own brain towards your own self, and so much kind of hate towards yourself that it really started to struggle, and then I started to hate myself, and it felt like I was waking up in a living hell every day. And this is the most real kind of metaphor I can give for this, is that it felt like I was waking up in living hell. It is a crazy thing when your own body is a prison, when everything inside you is like, this is not me and this is what I'm trapped in. So for a really long time I got really depressed because it literally was like I woke up in prison because that was just my body. And this led to a lot of, and that depression I think is something like my parent, like my mom was able to pick up on, and other people were pick up but not necessarily know how to help. And this all kind of led to like my mom actually at the age of 12 finding a doctor just outside of Toronto, a couple hours, I don't remember the exact doctor, and she booked me an appointment. And then, kind of fast forward to this conversation where I used to play hockey, and we were just driving to hockey, me and my mom, and she looks over and she's like, okay, so I found this doctor. It's about gender, and it's about, like, transitioning, and kind of explained what actually being transgendered is to me in that moment. And while I had known that, like, people change their body and known that I definitely kind of fit more with that, I didn't know the transgender term or even know how to start the process or anything along that lines. And so she kind of explained to me what transgender was, and I remember just breaking down crying, like absolutely bawling, because nothing has ever felt so true to me in my life than that definition. And it was so relieving knowing that, like, holy fuck, like maybe it's not just me. That's like a whole nother thing that was like, oh my god. And so I remember, like, we had a conversation, and she was like, so I booked this doctor's appointment for you. And if you want to go, we can go. If you don't, like, I'll cancel it for you. Like, a little bit worried that I was going to be mad. She's like, I cancel it for you. And I was like, no, like, I really want to go. And I remember talking a little bit more and feeling like I had finally kind of figured out who I was. And that's in that moment is when I kind of learned that, oh, I'm transgender. And it connected this feeling that I've been having my whole life with an actual term, an actual process. And so that was a very big moment throughout my transition, was that conversation in that car, and then following up with that actual appointment where they were like, they taught me to the idea of being like, okay, so you can ask people to start using he and them, or like he and him instead of her and she for pronouns and things like that. And that was a really big moment for me as well, and like just starting the whole process and realizing that I'm not wrong for feeling this way. It's just how I feel, and there's actually a process that can help me feel more like me and make my body feel less like a prison. And so that was like a really big moment for me all around, to even like challenge the way I look at myself, because it didn't change it at that point. There was still a lot of issues I had with myself from so much history, but it was the first time like I really challenged myself on like, oh, like, maybe it's okay to be me. And so that's like when I really kind of figured out like I was trans and started that process. But like knowing has been something I've known my whole life, literally my whole life. And I think there's so many other sub stories that I can go into. Even like the summer before was a really interesting summer for me, because I kind of figured out that I wanted to change my body but didn't know that meant I was trans, and had like a breakdown of a list I wanted, that like of options I could possibly do. And the last one on the list was come out to my family, because I remember it being so scary. But it's all like, these are so like, instead of kind of continuing down that path right now, I think I will be releasing more videos kind of explaining some of those other experiences a little bit more in detail, because they're a little bit significant. Like there's even moments like the conversion therapy and that conversation with my mom, even though I've talked about it quite hefty in this video, it is so significant that I will probably release a video just for that conversation and that appointment, because it was so significant. But this is a really good place to start for right now, I think, kind of giving you guys some understanding and me figuring out the beginning of this process. So that is it for now. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching. I appreciate all the love and support that I have been receiving, and I appreciate the support of just watching the video. Stay tuned for some more new stuff. Peace out, guys.